The movement condemns in particular Israel's unlawful and aggressive use of military force against unarmed and defenseless Palestinian, Syrian and Lebanese civilian population, including non-violent peaceful protesters.
This massacre proves the state terrorism practiced by Israel and the inherently aggressive way in which Israel deals with Arabs. Israeli occupation authorities continue deliberate killing against unarmed Palestinian civilians.
We will continue to denounce their contempt and disregard for peace, and the belligerent action of the Israeli government
is another apparent proof of crime against humanity.
To the representative of United Nations Watch.
Mr. President, history will record that the highest human rights body of the United Nations met today for no objective reason. Nothing in recent events, nothing in logic, nothing in human rights justifies today's debate. Our meeting is automatic, the consequence of a decision adopted 4 years ago, shortly after this council was created, to keep a permanent agenda item on one country only, Israel. History will record that at a time when citizens across the Middle East were being attacked by their own government, by rifles, tanks, and helicopters, the UN focused its scarce time and attention on a country in that region where this is not happening. The only country in the region which, despite its flaws, respects the right to peaceful assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of religion. The only country in the region with free elections, an independent judiciary, and the equal treatment of women. The only country where gays are not persecuted, arrested, or stoned to death, but on the contrary, march in their own annual parade, as they did in Tel Aviv 3 days ago. Mr. President, that is why the logic of this agenda item represents the opposite of human rights, and why it embodies the pathologies that so discredited this Council's predecessor. Indeed, this item is so unjust, so biased, so selective, so politicized, and so contradictory of this Council's own principles of equality and universality that it was condemned by the Secretary General himself, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, on 20 June 2007, the day after its adoption. And so we ask, in its recent 5-year review, despite everything happening in the Middle East, why did the Council decide to perpetuate this item, an act to be finalized this week by the General Assembly? Mr. President, history will record that when citizens were being persecuted or massacred by their own governments in Syria, Iran, Yemen, Libya, Bahrain, and elsewhere, the UN chose to turn a blind eye to the victims and instead endorsed the cynicism, hypocrisy, and scapegoating of the perpetrators. Thank you, Mr. President.